Are you registered to vote? Are you making your vote count in the fight against HIV? And if you're living with HIV, would you like to have a greater impact on the laws that affect your life? If so, stay tuned for AIDS Vision. Welcome to AIDS Vision. I'm your volunteer host, Allison Arngrim, and today we're going to be talking to some people from the Public Policy Department at APLA about several of their programs, including a new one called Speak Up. With me today is Howard Jacobs, the Grassroots Coordinator, Greg Blankeney, the Speak Up Coordinator, and Duane Bremond, the Director of Community Relations for Public Policy. Welcome to AIDS Vision.
Thanks for having us.
So, what is this new program, Speak Up? What is this a part of?
We came up with an idea that we need to have clients somehow become more involved in the political process. Right now, what's going on in Washington and Sacramento, we no longer are fighting for how much more money can we get for AIDS. We're fighting to keep our programs in place. Who better to speak about our programs but the clients who use them? In order to do that, we've decided that I think Greg can talk a little bit more about some of the ideas and goals and objectives of Speak Up.
Yeah, we've put a table in the Necessities of Life program area where we have a lot of traffic.
Right there in the food bank.
It's right there in the food bank. And there we have people coming in all the time, and a lot of people don't know what's going on around AIDS issues. I mean, they hear in the news about, occasionally about a fight over money or that kind of thing, but they don't know some of the specific things that are going on, and there are a lot of things they can do. A lot of people aren't registered to vote and don't take an active role in their lives with AIDS in government issues, and we think this is an opportunity for them to do it.
Are you finding that a high number of clients are in fact not registered at all?
Yeah, I'm surprised how many we are getting to register to vote a day. We've had it set up for a couple weeks now, and we're having. I think yesterday I went in and registered 10 people in the few hours I was there, and it's great. A lot of people are, really starting to get interested, and sometimes registering them to vote is the first step, and then after you do that, you can go on and inform them about some of the other ways they can help out.
I mean, it seems almost amazing in this day and age with stuff's going on that you would actually have so many people that haven't even registered, that like you're doing 10 people in a couple of hours.
Well, a lot of that has to do with it may just be a simple change of address. If you move, you have to re-register, and a lot of people forget that they have to do that.
And they go unregistered and they don't vote and things slide by.
And I think it's also important, and one of the objectives of Speak Up is not just to register people to vote, but to let them know who their public officials are and how they can contact them, so they can start to develop a rapport with the local office as well as their offices in Sacramento and Washington, D.C., letting their voice or their written words make a difference.
Do you find a lot of people don't really know like what district they're in and who their representatives are?
Absolutely.
It's quite scary.
Yeah.
Even for the ones who do vote, if you ask them who they voted for, they wouldn't be able to tell you. So that's the other scary side of it.
So it's education with the registration.
Absolutely.
Now you've had similar programs, but this one is different because before I think it was targeted to volunteers, to people just affiliated with AIDS Project Los Angeles. But
Exactly.
This is to the clients. This is to people living with HIV.
Exactly, and I think that's one of the things that we needed to work on, again, because our message now is much different. Our message is not asking for more money. Our message is trying to save the programs that improve the quality of life for people who are living with AIDS, and who better to talk about them than the people who use them.
And I mean, this is something people are walking through their lives, not taking an action. I mean, talk about having a direct effect on your life by your vote.
Absolutely.
People are apparently are not realizing this.
I think it just wasn't easy enough to get to them. Right now, what they were trying to do was just trying to live, and now we're giving them an opportunity to register to vote in a much easier fashion than having to go to the post office. By putting out our action alerts in NMLP, it's right there, and with Greg staffing the desk, we're able to explain exactly what the legislation is and what exactly they can do, be it by writing a letter or making a phone call, and providing them with paper and to mail the letters for them free, or providing them with a phone so they can make that phone call, and with a script so they know exactly what to say. So we're making it as easy as possible for the clients so they can say their own personal story, and there really is power behind the personal story.
What have been some of the reactions?
They've been real positive. We go out and we do introduce the desk to people. I mean, a lot of people walk in and they're like, "What is that strange new thing here?" And I'm just going to
First it was videos, now this. What are you?
Yeah, and now we're letting them know that there's this new thing, and when we let them know about that, there's been a lot of interest, and they come over and they want to find out a little bit of what's going on. And so we give them a little bit at a time. We try to see how much they can take in the first time, and then maybe on the next visit we welcome them to come back and learn a little bit more. And if we could register them to vote and let them know who their officials are, let them know about a couple of the things going on, and then every time build on that, I think we can have the APLA clients be very powerful.
One of the things I've noticed is that in news coverage, because they just focus on maybe one or two issues, they don't really talk about which representatives, where they stand on HIV, where they stand on HIV-related issues and funding. They just sort of, gloss things over. And you may have several people running for an office and never have any press or anything published on what they voted on when given that opportunity.
Absolutely, and that's also one of the things that Speak Up is supposed to do is we do a legislative report card every year. And we let them know how we rated each official, so they have a chance to see how their officials voted. We also, when it comes to election time, we send out questionnaires to the people who are running for office, asking them how they feel about certain HIV/AIDS issues. And we'll now be able to present that right at that Speak Up desk, so clients will know exactly what the people who are running for office are saying about HIV and AIDS, and then they can vote accordingly.
And what their commitment is.
And we don't get that on the news, so this is
No.
very good. What are some of the issues that you're finding that people are interested in when they're coming to this table, when you tell them they now can have an impact? What are some of the issues that they're concerned about?
They want to know things that are going to affect them in their life. For instance, there's a bill that's going on in the state legislature right now that will add water filters or bottled water to the Medi-Cal benefits. A lot of these people get Medi-Cal benefits, and yet, they're told to boil their water to protect against cryptosporidium. Well, who wants to boil their water?
Who has time to boil their water?
Well,
and it's something that directly affects their lives, so they can
Well,
get
crypto
interested.
is unfortunately, for those of you who didn't know, there's quite a bit of crypto in your tap water. Even if you don't have HIV, this is not something you want to be drinking.
But like the Department of Water and Power has advised people living with HIV disease to boil their water. So the bill was designed that if people are not strong enough to boil their water and you have Medi-Cal and don't have the ability to pay for bottled water, Medi-Cal will pay for them. This is a kind of preventive medicine so they can protect themselves from cryptosporidium.
Well, this can directly save people's lives.
Exactly, yeah. And who better to advocate for saving their own lives than people who live with HIV disease?
Someone who couldn't afford bottled water and couldn't boil their water could die from
Have died.
crypto
Have died.
repeatedly.
Yes.
This is
Yeah.
killing people, and so this is an instance where people can have their bottled water paid for and save their lives.
Exactly. And what's actually very interesting is that our grassroots network had a direct impact upon that bill getting through the state assembly. We lobbied a lot of our officials, and with the assembly being split almost evenly between Republicans and Democrats, we've been able to lobby some of the opposition, so we actually got the bill through the state assembly. And that was directly from the fact that people in our grassroots program lobbied their officials very hard to make sure they knew what the bill was and to get the bill across and passed, which has been fantastic to see it go through the process.
And Speak Up allows our clients to participate in that process.
Now, there's been quite a few studies done actually on not only the psychological benefits, but the direct physical benefits of being outspoken, having an impact on your situation. I mean, it seems rather obvious when you think about it, but is that another angle of this too, that the empowerment, again, of people with HIV?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Actually-
It actually helps prolong their lives. It gives them something to look forward to. It gives them something to do. It gives them a sense of empowerment so they can then take control of their own life. And that's very powerful.
There's something really incredible. I've been living with AIDS for 6 years. I've been volunteering at APLA for almost 2 years. Is that I'm starting to believe now that by fighting HIV on the outside helps my body fight it on the inside. And I see that as almost medicine. It's put a purpose behind my life, and it's given my life a lot more passion. And I feel that since I've gotten this gift from volunteering or from being involved in politics, I'm hoping I can give this gift to other clients so they too can be more empowered and to really do something to help protect their lives and improve the quality of their lives.
To give people an opportunity to save their own lives.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You know? And if one can't help themselves, who will? You know?
I think also this may be a possibility that, do you think that some representatives and some politicians don't see people with HIV and people living with AIDS as voters? I know it's very easy, we've seen this in several elections. Well, you can bash illegal immigrants because, hey, they can't vote you out of office, and you can bash teenage mothers because they're not registered to vote, that all the groups they've bashed lately have been people who don't vote. Do you think that in seeing people with HIV as a non-voting population, that it's made it an easy target to sort of say, well, we'll save money, we'll just slough this off?
I don't think they're able to say that anymore. Maybe early on in the pandemic that may have been something they could have said. But with the programs that we have for our volunteers and our clients, like Citizens Network, Neighborhood Network, and our Rapid Response Network, we make sure that they know who their constituents are and who are voting and who keep them in office. So our programs are very powerful.
Explain the Citizens Network again.
Well, Citizens Network is the largest letter writing campaign for HIV and AIDS. We have almost 20,000 people on our list that at any given point we can send them an action alert on a particular bill or a particular issue and who they need to respond to. For example, the bill that we talked about with the water bill. We are able to send a letter to 15,000 people asking them to call or write their elected official about a particular issue. They in turn do that. So if you're an elected official and you get 15,000 letters from people in your area on a particular issue, you're going to pay note to that.
And with our neighborhood network, which is our direct lobbying campaign, where we go one-on-one with our officials, they then can go into the office and say, we sent you 15,000 letters and you didn't vote for the bill. Why aren't you listening to us? So we're holding them accountable, you know, for their actions. And I think that's very, very important.
And showing up in person in their office always has an impact.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, if you show up in the office, the constituents will also vote.
I've been getting the impression that a lot of people, they've been hearing from the loved ones of people with HIV and AIDS, their friends, their families, their lovers, the volunteers. Is this perhaps, I know in the early days they heard more from people with AIDS, is this the first time in a very long time that a block of people with HIV are going to be really targeting their representatives?
Certainly in APLA, the idea is to, again, to educate people on how to vote, where to vote, who their elected officials are, and putting a power behind their story. And this is really one of the very few times that we have made a conscious effort to get clients more involved. And,
I think this adds a different layer to it. How it's been working now, a lot of people are going in advocating for people with AIDS, and some of them are people with AIDS as well. But I think with the Speak Up desk, you have access to a lot more people who are living with AIDS, and having their voice be heard, I think it adds that extra layer.
as well as giving them the opportunity to be educated on what's going on the local, state, and federal level as it relates to HIV legislation. So you're giving them the opportunity to learn what's actually happening.
And I think the motivational factor would be rather high. I mean, we're talking about something that directly affects you.
And plus, there are a lot of issues right now that directly affect people living with HIV. For example, right now, the county of Los Angeles has a budget shortfall, and they are talking about cutting $650 million out of the health budget alone. Of the first $100 million in cuts, $2 million of that is targeted towards AIDS-specific contracts. They need to know that. They need to know that that directly affects them, and they've got to be involved in making something happen that does not impact them so greatly. So
And this is at the county level.
this is just at the county level.
Where an individual has more impact at a national level.
Right. They are talking about cutting county hospitals, county clinics, everything that is going to directly affect those people living with HIV and AIDS. So it's very important that they begin to empower themselves and begin to fight on their behalf to stop these kinds of things from happening.
We're going to go to a brief public service announcement, a little roll-in, and we'll be right back.
In 1988, there were 7,000 women in the U.S. with AIDS.
He looks healthy.
He loves me. I'm too embarrassed to buy condoms.
Women like me don't get AIDS. By 1996, over 75,000 women will have AIDS. It's time to stop fooling ourselves. The truth is, women like us can and do get AIDS. Call for free confidential help and information.
And we were also just talking about the county cuts, which registering people to vote can have a serious impact on. Now, you're telling me about the county wanting to cut these funds to hospitals and to AIDS programs.
And what's devastating about them cutting these programs as it relates to AIDS, the federal government requires that the County of Los Angeles have a maintenance of effort in order for them to receive the current funding that they receive from the federal government, which right now for Los Angeles County is $34 million.
And how much is the county was putting up that they're cutting?
$650 from the health budget, $2 million AIDS specific in the first $100 million. So it could be even more. But what they don't realize, and what we've been trying to educate them on, is if they begin to cut these fundings that directly affect HIV and AIDS, they can lose the additional $34 million that they receive from the federal government.
Which is tremendous when you think Los Angeles is at the heart of the epidemic. If the county supervisors don't think that AIDS is important to citizens of Los Angeles, how is Washington going to understand that AIDS is important? If we don't get it here, DC certainly isn't going to get it, which is really scary because right now the Ryan White Care Act, which is the government's principal funding for HIV services, is up for reauthorization.
The main package.
The main package, okay? And it's kind of stuck in the Senate. There's been a hold put on it by Jesse Helms of North Carolina.
Helms again?
Helms again, once again. And it's also being marked up in the House of Representatives right now also. Without these fundings, organizations like APLA or the AIDS Service Center simply won't exist. You know, they rely on Ryan White funding. And if our supervisors don't get it, how do we expect the senators from different states not to get it?
So if people aren't registering to vote and they're not voting on local issues and county issues and losing that money, they could wind up losing national funding.
Absolutely.
And we just had a public service announcement about women with HIV. And women with HIV, many of the women I know are involved in the county hospital system and dealing with county services. How will this also affect poorer people with HIV?
Devastating.
Especially women and children.
Devastating.
And people have no money.
Literally, devastating. There will be no place for them to go. There will be no programs available to provide any kind of information for them. It will be devastating. People will die. People will lose their lives. And that's a risk that we cannot afford to take.
Now, this registration program is not only operating out of AIDS Project Los Angeles and to your clients with HIV, to people going to the food bank and the various programs. You're also registering people to vote outside of the agency?
Exactly. We're actually putting out a big voter registration campaign, which Duane is very much a part of. Right.
Well, what we've started a voter registration campaign. We want to get people motivated to get out and vote. There are a couple of events coming up that we want to specifically target and register folk to vote at those special events. Two of them that are coming up rather quickly, which will be the kickoff for our voter registration campaign, is the Christopher Street West celebration, which happens in
Gay Pride Festival,
Gay Pride Festival, where hundreds of thousands of people will be coming together. So we want to capture that audience and register folk to vote. Another place is with an organization which I founded 7 years ago called At the Beach. And this is an organization which brings together over 5,000 African American lesbians and gays from around the world into Los Angeles for the 4th of July weekend. And we will be registering them to vote as well. But what's really kind of neat, what we're going to really do, which is different this year, is we are contacting different states. We will be getting voter registration cards from New York, from Illinois, from Indiana, from Georgia, from Colorado, from Oregon, from Washington, from Texas. So people who are coming in town to participate in these festivities, we will be able to register them to vote as well. So there'll be no excuse.
So this is actually a national campaign.
Absolutely.
Are you also then going to keep people apprised in other states? Are there people going to be working there in education about their local state issues?
We do that in a number of ways. We work with different organizations throughout this country. We participate in different conferences that go on throughout this country. So this is going to be our push this year throughout this country, is voter registration. We're working in coalition with many different organizations, with women's rights organizations, reproductive rights organizations, then people who are involved with the environment, gun control, affirmative action. We are tying in all the coalitions that we continually work with to be a part of this national advertising campaign to get folk registered to vote, and we're very excited about it.
And I think it's very, very important because, again, our message now is much different with the new tone up in Sacramento as well as in Washington, D.C. Again, no longer are we fighting for how much money can we get, we're fighting for saving our programs, and be it for environmental issues, affirmative action, or HIV and AIDS. And so it's important that we come together with these groups to form coalitions to get people out to vote, not just to be registered, but actually to vote in the campaigns, so we can have elected officials who really strongly believe in our issues.
It seems also a trade-off, too, because a lot of people who have been voting on HIV issues, people living with HIV, have done a lot of work for these other coalitions on these other issues, and this may be sort of the trade-off. Okay, now it's your turn to help out.
We're all in this together, and some folk try to pit different organizations and different issues against each other, and that's not what we're doing. We are working in solidarity. We are one. We don't pit against each other. We're all fighting for many of the same things. So that's very important for us to stress that.
What I'm also hearing here, it's interesting because as we know that a lot of groups that are identified as being the right or the Christian right or what have you are very big on these coalitions of putting large groups together and having heavy, heavy voting drives. So is this sort of the other side finally speaks up?
You've had no choice. The reality is that the Christian Coalition and the Christian Right have done a fantastic job getting their members, one, registered to vote and out to vote for their candidates. So right now the agenda is really their agenda. And we have to react to their agenda as opposed to pushing forth the issues that we are most concerned about. And the only way that we can do that is by getting some of those elected officials out of office and putting the officials who believe in our issues into office. And the way to do that is getting people to vote. And that's the power that we have here.
And beginning at the local level. And that's what's so important about getting our clients to speak up, because it begins at the local level.
So this is sort of everyone's chance who've been watching the news and seeing this sort of tidal wave of the Christian Coalition going through, like, well, can I do something about it? This is the program.
This is exactly the program. It is, again, being registered to vote, 2, actually voting, 3, knowing who your elected officials are, and getting the information that is necessary through our grassroots programs, Citizens Network, Neighborhood Network, if you're a volunteer client, through Speak Up, so you can be educated on HIV issues and talk to your officials, either through phone calls, writing letters, or visiting them.
And if someone's watching and say they have an organization or group of people who also want to help, maybe want to help register more people, they can also get in touch with you and do that as well?
Absolutely.
Exactly, and we're providing that kind of technical assistance for them, so they'll have the ability to do that. Our grassroots programs are copied in many different areas across our country through a lot of other AIDS service organizations or with other causes that are concerned about this issue.
Right, so even if you're not HIV positive, even if you just want to come by and help, or you have more questions that you want to have answered, give us a call. It's not just HIV and AIDS specific.
And now you're also doing this on a volunteer basis.
I have found for myself that being a client of AIDS Project Los Angeles, My story was very tremendous. When I was first diagnosed with AIDS, I was fired from my job. My health insurance benefits were taken from $1 million down to $10,000. During that time, it was legal in our country to do that, and so I had to go to court and fight. And I'm fortunate that the case was settled out of court and my medical bills were paid. But I knew right then and there that laws had to be in place so people who were going to get diagnosed with AIDS would not have to live the same kind of tragedy that I went through.
So you're the classic example of the thing that we're fighting against.
Exactly. You know, and I've learned through working in public policy that there's power behind my story. And when I say that to people, or I talk about it to elected officials, things can get done. And they realize that this is what happens in real life. And it's made me want to, I hate to say it, in some ways getting fired from my job was the best thing that happened to me because it made me want to live. It made me want to say, it made me say to myself, these people cannot get away with it. And the second part of it was that I have to make sure that no one else has to suffer the way I had to suffer.
Thank you for coming on the show. Listen, this is your chance. You're watching the news, you know what's going on, you've been complaining, you see what's happening. Yes, this is war, yes, they mean you, and this is your chance. If you're not registered to vote, you're out of your mind. Come on down, get registered. This is the time to take action, and you are being handed the opportunity to do so. Thanks for watching AIDS Vision.
Everywhere I turn, there's always lots to learn, and just as many reasons as to why. You and me got choices, so listen to the voices inside us that say don't quit, don't cry. So while leaning on each other, brothers known as brothers, and strangers we've decided there are none. To life's unanswered questions, appeals and rejections. Indeed, this is a race that must be won. All it takes is love for everyone. At any given moment, though you may think you've blown it, you can make a friend out of a foe. For in this human race, nothing takes the place of knowing you're not in it all alone. So while leaning on each other, brothers known as brothers, and strangers we've decided there are none. To life's unanswered questions, appeals and rejections.